Hi, Mayor Pro Tem. Oh, there he is.
Hi.
Hi, I was just texting council member, but I did see someone try to join a Teams meeting.
Oh,
Yeah, Office 365 automatically makes it a Teams meeting, and so you have to delete all the,
yeah.
yeah.
Extra. I want extra stuff.
Yeah, it is.
Good to know I wasn't the only one.
I was texting because I saw the alert and I was like, oh, let me see. Yeah, it's weird.
Hi.
Sorry about that. Okay.
Hi, John.
Hi, good evening.
Evening. So is everyone here?
Yes,
Melissa?
all the staff that are planning to present are here. Yes.
Excellent. So then we should start the meeting. It is September 14th. We are starting the City of West Hollywood's West Hollywood Pride Subcommittee meeting at 6:01 p.m. I will start with the land acknowledgement. The City Council West Hollywood Pride Subcommittee acknowledges that the land on which we gather and that is currently known as the City of West Hollywood is the occupied, unceded, seized territory of the Gabrielino, Tongva, and Gabrielino Kizh peoples. So let's go ahead and call this meeting to order. May we get a roll call, please?
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Shine. I will simply note for the record that both of our subcommittee members are here this evening, Council Member D'Amico and Mayor Pro Tem Shine. And if I could get a verbal acknowledgement that you approve tonight's agenda, then we can proceed.
Approved.
Thank you so much.
Yes. Excellent. Are there any public comments?
I do not have anyone signed up for general public comment. I do have 2 members of the public for item 3A. However, there are a lot of people in the meeting. So if you did wish to speak under general public comment and not on the debrief of the West Hollywood Pride 2022, please use the raise hand feature and I will call on you. Seeing none, thank you.
Thank you. Let's move on to unfinished business. Item 3A, debrief on WeHo Pride 2022. Are there any changes to this or do we just have a staff report?
Yes, event staff is coming on now to present the item.
Great.
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem Shine and Councilmember D'Amico. My name is Megan Wraith, Event Services Supervisor. Also here this evening are Yvonne Corker, Director of Community Services, Cleo Smith, Event Services Manager, and Carrie McCormick, Event Services Coordinator. Staff presented the initial WeHo Pride post-event report to the City Council at its meeting on August 1st. And at the Council's direction, we're here this evening to seek input and feedback, both from the Pride Subcommittee and the community to be included in a comprehensive debrief item scheduled for the City Council meeting on October 3rd. So at its inaugural event, WeHo Pride programming featured the WeHo Pride LGBTQ Arts Festival, which included 40 days of LGBTQ programming at various locations around the city. And it featured WeHo Pride Weekend, held June 3 through 5. Within WeHo Pride Weekend were the following elements. There was the Dyke March, which is the annual city program, which was held at the Robertson Community Stage, which included DJ programming, an awards presentation, and a rally and march. This year's event included a sizable motorcycle contingent and hundreds of marchers. There was the Women's Freedom Festival, which was a co-sponsored event with portions within the WeHo Pride footprint that featured emerging LGBTQ and BIPOC women and non-binary musicians, comedians, poets, and activists. Organizers of that event estimate that the Friday night component at the Robertson Community Stage attracted up to 500 attendees. And the Women's Freedom Festival also included a Rainbow Family Day picnic in Plummer Park, which organizers estimate attracted about 100 attendees. The There was also the free WeHo Pride Community Street Fair, which was held June 3, 4, and 5. And that included community group booths, sponsor activations, the Robertson Community Stage with live performances, and other entertainment elements on Robertson Boulevard and San Vicente Boulevard. The street fair featured booths from 30 different community groups that applied to participate through the city's application process. And several organizations from the community group application process were also granted blocks of performance time on the Robertson Community Stage, which was programmed with largely local LGBTQ+ talent when not featuring the community group performances. In West Hollywood Park on June 3rd, 4th, and 5th was the Out Loud Raising Voices ticketed concert, an award-winning ticketed concert series highlighting LGBTQ artistry, which was held on both in the park proper and on the PDC Plaza. The inaugural WeHo Pride Parade was held on Sunday, June 5th between Crescent Heights and Robertson, and the parade featured 106 entries, including floats, vehicles, and marching contingents, comprised of community groups, city businesses, corporate sponsors, and celebrity guests. The inaugural parade attracted thousands of participants and spectators to the city. In addition to the opportunity to participate in the WeHo Pride Community Street Fair, the city's application process also allowed community groups to request funding in order to produce their own independent events under the larger umbrella of WeHo Pride celebrations. And through this process, funding was awarded to for 17 co-sponsorships, 10 of which were independent events, and 7 of which were activations and or performances within the WeHo Pride weekend footprint. The independent events included a queer prom, an LGBTQ business mixer, and an interactive theatrical performance, among others. And this next slide is a summary snapshot of the groups that were funded, the amount allocated, and the activation that they produced. We can leave that up for a second if you guys want to take a quick look at it. And then we can always go back to this slide too if we have questions or want to talk about it. Following the event staff has held internal and external debrief meetings and worked to collect post-event feedback, as well as data related to attendance, cost, and other key metrics for a lot of these different elements. At their meeting on July 6th, the Transgender Advisory Board discussed Pride as part of their agenda, and the feedback included things such as a desire for more visibility and more participation from members and the community. And at their meeting on July 14th, the LGBTQ+ advisory board discussed WeHo Pride as a part of their agenda, and their feedback included things such as the desire for more community engagement, as well as increased promotion of the free portions of WeHo Pride programming. And so this meeting was intended to solicit additional feedback from the community and the Pride Subcommittee and other stakeholders. And so at this time, if there are no other questions, we'd like to turn it back to the subcommittee for discussion.
Thank you. Well, I think actually we should probably go to public comment and then we can go to discussions.
Thank you. Our first speaker this evening for item 3A is Scott Schmidt. Scott, if you would like, you may turn on your IC. Go ahead and you will have 3 minutes.
Hi, good evening. Scott Schmidt, resident of West Hollywood and executive director of Emerald Village, West Hollywood, which represents the licensed cannabis businesses in the city. We were an exhibitor in the community festival and an applicant for a sponsorship for to produce a community event, which we did anyway, the Queen of the Emerald Village, which was a great success at the Artistry Lounge. And so I wanted to give feedback kind of in 4 areas. First of all, as an exhibitor, I wanted to thank the city for making this accessible and making it no cost to be an exhibitor, even though it was the registration was free. There are all kinds of costs that come with it, including staffing and booths and giveaways and all of those things. Two kind of feedbacks, two pieces of feedback that might help to make that free festival area better, both for exhibitors and the public. One is we really needed food and water options in the free section of the festival, because when people were finishing their shifts at 9 or 10 p.m. and working inside the festival, there was really nowhere accessible for people to eat, and there was no affordable, convenient place to purchase water or non-alcoholic beverages in that outdoor area. So that would be one thing I would suggest. We were located in the parking lot area by the stage, and Sunday was great, but attendance on Friday evening and Saturday at times, you wondered if the people performing could have invited 10 of their friends to show up. And I understand this is our first time doing it, and it's a learning experience and a process. So hopefully we can give some guidance to those to whom we're giving stage time to get your friends to show up for you. As related to the application process for the community event, more time in the future, and I realized we were on a short calendar this year, so we have more time to plan, so hopefully more time to go through that process. Perhaps some guidelines and feedback for those who were not successful applicants in that process as to what can be done to improve the applications so that perhaps there's a shot in the future. Speaking more generally, as the city develops a special event process policy for cannabis, we would like to continue to be involved. We'd like to plan to be part of the 2023 Pride Festival with consumption zones and sales that are set aside from the general public, that are through our licensed businesses and are providing tested products that are not black market products. We saw several cannabis businesses purchase booth space inside the festival this year. As I've told anyone who would listen, some of them were selling illegal products. Some of them were, selling delivery and sending people around the corner to someone with a Yeti cooler in front of Coons Hardware. That took, yes.
The 3 minutes are up, and
Okay.
you can
That's about
please
all I
wrap
have
up
to say.
your, okay.
Yeah.
I was gonna
Hey,
say, wrap
so
up your thought.
please include us in the planning for next year on that, in that regard. Thank you.
Thank you. We appreciate your feedback. Our next speaker that I have signed up, and then I will move to individuals in the meeting, is Chris Baldwin. Chris, if you are in the meeting, please unmute yourself, turn on your camera. There you are, and you will have 3 minutes. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Chris Baldwin, founding president and current vice president of the L Project. And I'd like to provide our Pride debrief notes. I've sent those over to Megan and Cleo, so hopefully they can be added to the record. I may need additional time. I'm not sure, but I'm going to try to get through my list right here. But I want to thank everyone on the subcommittee again for allowing the L Project to participate in WeHo Pride. It was an amazing event. Operational notes I'd like to add, because I did speak at the last council meeting. The big things for us was accessing the Robertson stage. When we had a production meeting with JJLA months prior, I distinctly remember asking for, how are we going to be able to load in, load out? And Jeff said that we would not need anything because everything would be there. Well, that wasn't really true, because we had to set up the catering tent. We had to set up our tents behind the talent tents, and all of those things required access to the road, which was hindered by road restrictions. So I'm not sure why someone had to wait at the end of Melrose to get access if we are producing the event. That was a major headache for us. So, getting the step and repeat banners up and all the things that we needed to do was hindered by not having access to the Robertson stage just to come up the street. We were not allowed to bring any vehicles up the street, so it made it really hard. Number 2 was parking. there was no parking provided by the city or JJLA. And so all of our talent, our board members, our volunteers, everyone had to pay $30. And then we had to reimburse that. The organization had to reimburse that. In terms of the seating that the Dyke March used, we had asked that those chairs remain there so that our elders would have a place to sit, or we'd have VIP seating. But the minute the Dyke March came back, all of those chairs were taken. I want to say they may have left at our request of maybe 10 chairs, but it would have been nice to have the front filled, filled with chairs so that people could sit down to enjoy the show. And it, again, I'll piggyback on what the gentleman said before. Friday night was just a very light crowd. We do this next year. We'd love to be a part of it. We're really pushing for the city to move those dates to a Saturday instead of Friday night. It's just very difficult to get a big turnout on a Friday night. Fourth point here is run of show. Because the Dyke March ran 10 minutes late, it pushed everything back. And towards the end of the show, we got a lot of pressure from our JJLA stage manager to begin cutting time. We had to cut almost all of our talent's time. So if, I don't understand why there was such a major cutoff at specifically 10 o'clock. I thought that we should have been allowed to go at least till 10:30. So we may want to think about that in the future. Again, on Friday night, the competing program was JJLA. I think it was Little Kim. People were running over to see Little Kim. She was supposed to start at 10:30. So again, Friday nights and having major events all at the same time kind of dampens down the attendance thing. And in terms of marketing, this is my 6th point here in terms of marketing. Up until June 3rd, I thought that we could have done a better job in terms of the city promoting the events, especially women's events. JJLA had their promos running, but in terms of, yes.
I apologize for interrupting. I just want to ask Mayor Pro Tem Shine if she would like to provide you additional time.
Chris, can you wrap up in 30 seconds?
Yes. Let me move down to the community notes. Pride for profit is a great way to lose community. Many in our community wanted to know why the official girl party of Pride was held at a straight club and why were they permitted to sell tickets on Eventbrite from $20 to $5,000. And I think we feel like WeHo Pride and Out Loud should be 2 separate events in the future, with Pride being free or donation only and led by organizations from our community. And that is my time. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chris. Appreciate you. So now I will move to the individuals who I see with their hands raised in the meeting. And our first speaker this evening in Zoom, Queen Shannon. If you would like to turn on your camera, you may, or you can simply unmute yourself. I see you. There you go. Go ahead. You'll have 3 minutes.
Awesome. Good evening, everyone. I'm Queen Shannon, the office manager for Unique Women's Coalition. I'm a new resident to the city of West Hollywood. We were so elated to participate in this year's WeHo Pride Festival. So I just have a couple of pros and like 2 cons. The application process was extremely smooth. The music festival concept was epic. JJLA provided great customer service and organization during the event. The parade is always well organized and detailed with directions. Offering spaces to smaller organizations was a great effort. And the only 2 cons that we had was tabling around loud music was hard to communicate with community. We did get a lot of feedback from some of our male counterparts who did not understand why FEM space was being held during Pride in the city of West Hollywood. And the final con was a lot of organizations that provides the same services were kind of dispersed out from each other. So maybe if like fellow organizations that provide the same service can kind of be tabling together. That way that it's not hard for community to search for different vendors. And that was pretty much it. Overall, it was an amazing effort, and we will be so elated to participate again in 2023. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Queen Shannon. The next individual in the meeting is Ms. Tiger. Ms. Tiger, go ahead. You will have 3 minutes.
Hi, good evening. My name is Ms. Tiger. I am the current co-chair of the LGBTQ+ Advisory Board. I am speaking on behalf of myself. However, a lot of the sentiments that I will share were also brought up in our meeting. During our meeting pertaining to Pride. During the August 1st City Council meeting, Councilmember Erickson suggested that JJLA be awarded a long-term contract. It was later suggested by Mayor Meister that the city consider a 3-year contract. During the public comments for this item in a City Council meeting, I shared my opinion that it's too soon to grant JJLA a long-term contract. My opinion was and is based on the following context. In prior instances and in general, the feedback from both the LGBTQ+ Advisory Board and the Transgender Advisory Board is not fully conveyed in meeting minutes, nor fully included as part of an overall conversation that applies to our community. Prior to any contract for WehoPride being awarded, there is an essential need for feedback from the LGBTQ+ community, feedback, for example, in the form of town halls, conversational polling, and presentations. Opinions reported from the LGBTQ+ Advisory Board, the Transgender Advisory Board, and subcommittees in the full capacity of what was shared are an essential component. To award a contract to JJLA without a future RFP and without input from the future LGBTQ+ Commission doesn't appear equitable and is counterproductive to what the purview of the LGBTQ+ Commission will hopefully include. Additionally, there is the possibility of having a few new city council members post the upcoming election, and granting this contract ahead of time without their input also feels premature. And finally, a 3-year contract, in my opinion, is not a short-term contract as suggested by Mayor Meister. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Tiger. I don't see anyone else in the meeting with their hand raised, but if you would like to speak on this item, please use the raise. Oh, I see Jackie Steele. Go ahead, Jackie, and you'll have 3 minutes.
Hey, everyone. I'm really excited. We are finally getting this debrief. So it was mentioned earlier that there was data requested from folks and feedback. I'd love to get more context about how that data was collected. How was it collected? Where was it collected? And can we see kind of the basically the results of that data? I think it'd be good for everyone to look at. For the Dyke March, there was not a clear plan and holding space for the bikes. It was a little bit of a runaround on the day. There's a lot of other layers to that cake, and that really should properly have its own fuller debrief on logistics, but that was a big one. The bikes not being allowed, the security staff and police not knowing bikes were coming was a big concern, clearly on the day. Competing issue programming in that open space is an issue for visibility for the artists. Most of those artists are marginalized and get less visibility as it is. We cannot put it on the backs of those artists who get less visibility on the whole to bring a crowd as well when we're competing with major artists and heavily paid for talent. It's difficult for those orgs to table against the loud music. Marketing was very lacking. I reached out many times to talk about CEO, to talk about anytime you search for WehoPride, you found LA Pride. I got feedback from many community members about that. Nick Casey was not able to be here, shared a couple pages of feedback with me as well that I'd like to mention. It's very difficult in 3 times, but maybe if there's less, you'll let me speak again and provide Nick's feedback. Nick was not able to be here. But that was part of the feedback. People did not know, and people were very confused about the difference between LA Pride and WehoPride. I would also like to see this be 2 different events, one led properly by community and in the spirit of community, and then Out Loud, which is an amazing music festival, at a separate time. This would also serve as an additional moneymaker for the city, and I think that would be a wonderful thing post-COVID. This is not a Pride, it's a concert and then some community booths with low attendance. Again, the intention is a critique. We have to look at how we do these things better and how we build it. So the city's intention to have its own pride was not a win. This was not a West Hollywood Pride event. This was a concert and a successful concert, but with a built-in crowd built over decades of Pride events in this city. So we can't ever forget that. We bring that audience here, and we will continue to bring that audience as a city of West Hollywood. We had events that went through the process, and then we had events that popped up and didn't go through the process. We had women's events that through affiliation with JJLA, usurped the process, showed up and were allowed to label themselves the official girl party and things like that. Although I support that group and I certainly support the increase in women's events on the whole, we definitely need more of them. The way it was gone about was wrong. It's privilege and access operating in real time. And that's exactly why when you have the melding of a corporate entity and a concert producer and then the community and grassroots entity without proper vetting, you have that. And then also people in the parade that lobbed actual threats against city council members, et cetera. They're just, I don't feel was proper vetting in that regard. And I think the Pride Parade should also be managed by a committee along with the staff to execute a parade. We had reports of super long wait times, people baking in the sun, there were heavy lag times. And that felt like a bit of a hot potato that was tossed at JJLA without lack of a body to properly manage it. And so I think they did the best they could. Yeah.
Your 3 minutes are up, but I will defer to Mayor Pro Tem Shine if she would like to give you additional time.
Can you finish in 30 seconds?
Yes, thank you. We had reports. One of the other things that came up from a variety of folks was that there was not information on the free community tickets. And this stuff just wasn't handled in an equitable way. When the Trans Advisory Board asked for tickets, they were given tickets, the LGBTQ, which I support fully. The LGBTQ board was not offered the same tickets. The TAB was given a booth. LGBTQ board was not offered a booth. It would take nothing to offer this in an equitable way. And when you went to the website for Out Loud, it said free tickets available for organizations. There was no information, no channels listed, and no way for people to know how to access that, which is why I think TAB actually made the request. So I'll wrap it at that, but thank you.
Thank you, Jackie. The next individual I see with their hand raised is Becky Harden. Becky, if you would like, you may turn on your camera or simply unmute yourself. Go ahead,
Hello.
You'll have 3 minutes.
Thank you. My name is Becky Harden, and I'm with Being Alive Los Angeles. We engaged with WeHo Pride through co-sponsorship and set up an independent event, partnering with AHF West Hollywood out of the closet and Being Alive's SSP program. We had just a wonderful day. It was a fantastic experience. The application process was just so incredibly easy. The communication was wonderful. I would say the only challenge that we really experienced was with code compliance. Code compliance was very challenging to work with. Their communication style was aggressive and I have to say a little toxic. It was incredibly stressful for me and for our executive director, Jamie Baker. There was a lot of miscommunication and there were some doubts up until the last minute if we were going to be able to even engage in our independent locations. So as far as feedback from Being Alive LA, again, the opportunity was wonderful. We had a great time. Tremendous feedback from all the participants during the day. The only challenge would be to report is code compliance. And so some sort of partnership between social services and the committee and code compliance rolling out, for example, what are the West Hollywood approved food trucks with the application process rather than sending us money and then weeks later saying, oh, you already paid for a food truck. Yeah, but they're not approved. So there were some challenges up front, but nothing dampened what we felt was a really successful event and just a really fun way to celebrate West Hollywood Pride. So thank you again.
Thank you so much, Becky. I don't see anyone else with their hand raised in the meeting. So if you did wish to speak on this item, please raise your hand and I will call you. Seeing none, Mayor Pro Tem, thank you.
Great. Councilmember D'Amico, would you like to go?
Sure. First of all, thanks to everyone who is here and those that provided super thoughtful and helpful feedback. Obviously, it runs the gamut from immediately solvable to much more complicated to solve, and maybe larger sets of things need to be brought back to our entire council before we could give direction on solving some of those larger things. I guess sort of working backwards, the question about code compliance, I think those are good notes, solid sort of suggestions about that. And it's also true that, without this first time through, we probably wouldn't have discovered some of those complications of giving grants to organizations to throw a party in a particular location for a particular reason. So I think that's good feedback, and we can, I'm sure, act on that. I guess that brings up another thing that I found in the experience this year was that the coordination between social service agencies and our city and their sort of representation to our WeHo Pride effort, I thought was quite beautiful and quite terrific. And again, sort of one of the notes of trying to sort of put those organizations in neighborhoods, I think that makes sense. That's something we can pass on to JJLA. And my sense is that given the success of this year, next year, there will be a larger desire to participate, and perhaps even more agencies and having neighborhoods or having themes around those that are participating might make sense. I think the question regarding JJLA and the contract, I don't really think that's something we can discuss here, but I think the larger context around that is that one of the major complications of decades of LA Pride participation is that we would often wait months from June 11th or 12th or the second weekend in June to have a debrief, because they were, typically not ready to provide the data. So I'd like to thank the staff for getting this together, and no doubt JJLA was part of providing that. But also then the planning for the next year would begin, but it was always often in April, sometimes March, but often in April, we would get a staff report. And then in that way, it was too late to make any changes. And so I think in some way, this long talked about desire to plan these events in a more thoughtful way, have fewer questions open every year, but as much flexibility to serve the public. So I think that's in some way the genesis of this. All comments that Jackie and others made, Ms. Tiger, regarding that effort, that option for a longer term contract, I certainly think as a council we will discuss that. But having served on this subcommittee for 11 years now and several months, really that was in some way often the most frustrating piece, was getting our partner to be a partner. And at least in this case, our partner is a partner. And I think that's probably enough about that. And I guess I think it's important to really address, and I'm guessing the Mayor Pro Tem will also address many of the things I just said, and probably many more in a more thoughtful way. But I wanted to talk about my experience of the Women's Freedom Festival and the sort of other events that happened. I think as an inaugural year, again, put together with sort of, someone correct me, but 90 days of, effort, it seemed like a pretty terrific set of things went on that weekend. I will say that I was surprised there was not a more coordinated effort to understand what our inaugural Women's Festival might be and how to celebrate that in a more thoroughgoing way. So I hear that, and I experienced that, and I hope that with November, December, January, with 10 months lead time, we can. I'm not saying we're going to vote to have one, but I'm hoping we vote to have one. A women's festival, we can promote it and celebrate it and help to make sure that it does stand at least as tall as the other things that happen. And in some way, if not taller, because as was mentioned, this is a community event versus a private event. And I think all of us are fairly certain that Out Loud has its own generative motion. It will arrive, it will happen, it will succeed. But our community events, I think this is our chance. This is what we have learned, at least what I have learned and hope to pass on to the council now and future council colleagues, is that the community events is really what we should focus on. We should really, really focus on making those community events have tent poles that are just as tall as the Out Loud event. Because I think that in some way is the heart of this idea of WeHo Pride. And I'm not in any way trying to destabilize what happened. I think what happened was truly remarkable in the short time that it happened, in our first one. And I do believe WeHo, West Hollywood Pride and Pride Starts Here are exactly the right things. But I think to get back closer, as close as possible to the heart of the matter, I would suggest that we really focus on our community events and try to raise them as high as we can, with the understanding that if we're going to have a for-profit organization produce something, that they got that, they can raise that tent and have that event. So I think Mayor Pro Tem Shine, if that's enough, I'm finished. I've listened enough to myself, but I'm interested to hear your thoughts as well.
Thank you, Councilmember D'Amico. Before I go into that, I just want to say this is your last Pride Subcommittee meeting, and it has been such an honor and a pleasure to serve on this committee with you. I've learned a lot from you. I've really enjoyed co-creating the foundation for the inaugural WeHo Pride with you that has gone to council and the work we've done with them. I want to thank staff for really at the last minute obliging me and moving the meeting so that we get more participation. I love that we had great feedback, and thank you for all of your work. I think that given that this was such a short turnaround, everyone really did an incredible job. So thank you for that. I would like to just go in order regarding the food and water options. I think that's something we can easily take into consideration that Scott Schmidt mentioned for the next year, and it makes sense. And we knew that because of the short time frame, there would be things that we would improve upon. So this is something I think we can definitely look at. Going to Chris Baldwin's comments, I think that providing access to producers of events is essential, and that would probably just be a logistical issue of working with staff and making, hindsight is 2020. We would look back and go, oh, okay, they needed this, so let's make sure access is given. I agree that there weren't many chairs because I sat in one of those chairs, and probably if we're going to create a more successful future and more robust attendance, which I would love for us to create, more chairs would be great for people. I love that there was a Ferris wheel that was really fun in that space, and it was very well liked. I think that there is, I would like us to have a further discussion of looking at alternatives. One, and I've said this before, moving Dyke Marsh later in the evening would provide higher attendance for queer women and those who support us. And then how that would interplay with the Women's Freedom Festival, there's a lot of different options here. Perhaps looking at a Saturday is an option for them. Maybe we do Dyke March and then move the Women's Freedom Festival to a Saturday. There's no one said that the Women's Day had to always be just on Friday. The more women and queer women have space in our city, the better we are. And so as far as, and because of that, I want to also say that absolutely prioritizing community spaces, community events is essential. This is feedback we've gotten from residents. It just so happened that this year, because of funding and the way it rolled out, we had Out Loud be at the same time as our WeHo Pride. I think for next year, having a discussion with the full council of, we don't necessarily have to have Out Loud the same weekend. It could be on its own the next weekend. And we have WeHo Pride and the Pride Parade, and then build more community presence and really have this be all about community. That first weekend would give us more space. It would, of course, it would mean closing down WeHo Park for 2 weekends. And there's things we can try. So that's just a suggestion. Regarding tabling loud music, I don't know how we would be able to remedy that. I appreciate the feedback, but I really like putting similar services close to each other. I think that's really smart and something we could easily do for the future, and it makes sense. And also how inappropriate to, if I heard correctly, a member of the community was upset that there were femme booths or presentation. That just sounds like misogyny to me, and it's absolutely unacceptable. Going back to Out Loud, I was also very disappointed, and I said this, I think, in our last council meeting, that the corporate sponsor women's event was told that they could say they are the official party. That needs to be in our contract, written out explicitly with any contract with Out Loud, that is unacceptable, and that WeHo Pride is WeHo Pride. Instead of telling everyone they could say they're the official party, nobody says that. It's a WeHo party. They could be Out Loud Women's Party, whatever that is, but that's not okay at all. The LGBTQ plus, Ms. Tiger, I believe what I heard is that TAB had a booth, but the LGBTQ plus advisory board did not. I don't know why that would be. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think they both should have visibility. Often when I was on the former LGAB, not a lot of people knew about us, and it's good to have that visibility out there. As far as the term of the contract, I think that is something the council needs to decide with further discussion. I'm not sure I have enough input to make a decision either way or give input on this. I think this is something we need to decide at the full council. Regarding Jackie's comment of collecting data, I would like in the debrief that comes to council, maybe some data information in that. That would be great. And I did get a call from Marna Deach on the day of Pride, which was stressful, about the bikes not being able to get in. So that is just logistic stuff that we can fix later in the future, easily fix. I know people were running around. I think I called Cleo or Megan in the middle of the day, and you were running to find someone, and maybe Deanne, somebody. Marketing absolutely needs to be better, not just for the Women's Freedom Festival. What I would like to see, and I think we talked about perhaps giving more marketing funding, whether it's Out Loud or both, from both levels. Our comms and Out Loud need better marketing. At first, it was just a Women's Freedom Festival and WeHo Pride. And then I had to say at council a couple of times, West Dyke March, and then Dyke March was added. But there was not enough marketing of any of the other events by the city. And I think we need to do that. So all of these community events somehow get more consistent marketing by us and by Out Loud, actually, because Out Loud, or JJLA, I'm sorry, I'm saying Out Loud, JJLA was running Out Loud, but it just felt like all of their marketing efforts was going to Out Loud. And when we were discussing marketing at the beginning, they were supposed to be marketing everybody, and that didn't happen. So whatever they need to do, that needs to change. Free community tickets, again, that's great input, and let's look into that, how we can fix that access. I appreciate that a couple of folks said that the application process was great and well done. So well done, staff, on that. Regarding code compliance and the issue with food trucks, this is an issue that other events have had in the city as well. I know when we did the, there was some frustration on other events around this. So I think this is just up top. It's just communicating that this is our process, and this, instead of later on, it makes sense. It's not, when people come to do events, they're just not used to city processes that tend to be a little more bureaucratic, and setting that expectation properly right up front would be helpful. And those are all my notes. So I thank you to everyone who came and participated and gave us feedback. And I would say letting the community groups know they can come to city council when this comes to us. Again, the ones that weren't able to be here, Nick Casey, I know I don't see anyone from Cherry Bomb here, so let's make sure they are aware as well, and any other participants. As far as, oh, one more thing, the parade, as a city, we can only permit a parade. We actually cannot, as a city, participate in choosing who gets to participate or not. So, because that takes us into First Amendment issues. So that is why we didn't have more control over that. I think if members of the public or community want to be more involved, if JJLA ends up again requesting a permit, the best route to take is to contact them directly and say, hey, I want to help, but not in a way that's connected to the city. I think that's the way to, just as a community, give input in that sense. And I'm sure JJLA would be receptive to getting help on that. Okay, that's it. And if there's nothing else, John, do you have any additional things on this?
I do, Mayor Pro Tem. I just, I think it's worth asking Megan and Cleo and Yvonne, and is there anything else you need in order to prepare the staff report? Anything you want us to, vote on or take a a yes, no position on, because I think, we're asking you to sort of set this up, tee this up in October for a good discussion, and we just want to make sure you have everything you need.
Thank you. No, I think this has been a really helpful session this evening. It was great getting everyone's feedback and input. The data collection and metrics gathering that we mentioned are in the works, and they will be in the report. And that's it. Otherwise, I think we're all set to come back on October 3rd. Thank you.
Great.
All right, then let's move on to item 4, which is items from subcommittee members. Do you have any remarks or items?
I have nothing, no. Thank you.
Okay. Neither do I. So any items, anything else from staff? Okay, so let's go to our last public comment period. I thought there was a hand raised. Jackie Steele.
Yes, there she is. Go ahead, Jackie. You can.
Thank you. Yeah, so I'm a little concerned that we're not having, and that doesn't mean we're not going to have it on October 3rd, but we really haven't had an opportunity, nor is this kind of discussion an opportunity to brainstorm what Pride could be, to talk about the future of Pride, to talk about the future of Pride for the city of West Hollywood. This is really like a checks and balances for what happened, and then not really ideating. And I think that's the part we were thrown into it so late last year. And I think what everyone pulled off was incredible. There's no doubt, but we're not looking at reimagining it. And the entire point of doing West Hollywood's own is reimagining it and doing something different. I am aware of the parade constraints. Thank you to Mayor Pro Tem Seppi Shine. I've actually executed these in other cities prior to West Hollywood. And so I'm actually very familiar with not only that, but the operating. And I did reach out to JJLA and it was not received. So I will make that clear. This is also an RFP process. There has to be transparency within the process for the city. That was a 1-year contract. That was a permit for that event. I don't want people to walk away. It seems like the only conversation is kind of the future of this within JJLA and what they're going to do. There are opportunities, and we haven't looked at other cities with similar demographics and how they've done it and how they managed to create sustainable events for their city that keep funding in their city for 30 plus years. Because what we're not looking at is LA Pride went away, and I know Councilmember D'Amico was talking about, the rebuilding and all of that history. What happens when JJLA goes away? JJLA is an individual business and promoter. If they go away, we're back to square one. This is not a West Hollywood event. It is not. This is a JJLA production, and then this is some sprinkled in community elements, which I thought some of that was really amazing and well done, and commend the staff for. But in terms of an event that the city owns, that stands on its own for 30 years and generations to come, this is not that thing. There are ways other cities have enacted this. They've created community built boards and 501c3s with proper structure and able to enact that. And I've offered to discuss that and even bring in folks from those cities to discuss it, so that when you type in their name, they're the only thing that comes in a 3-state radius, right? Like, there are folks that know how to execute this incredibly well with an incredible amount of lived experience that we could lean on to also ideate. So I just want to remind us, it'd be dope to ideate and actually talk about what else Pride can be and what else we can do, rather than getting it done when we have so much time to actually look at how we can change this to a sustainable long-term effort. Thank you.
Thank you, Jackie. Angela De Silva, I see that you have, go ahead.
Hi, nice to see everyone. I forgot I had a comment earlier. It was such an honor to be included in the parade. I didn't have anything to do with the planning. I didn't have a booth or anything. And I know this comment for the whole time. Sorry, I'm blanking on what I was saying, because I wanted to keep going on about how much I loved it and how much love there was, and it was emotional and all that, but I'll get to the point. Was that on my walk home after we got dropped off, like about a few hundred other people, my phone was pickpocketed. And I think so many people were able to track it to Hawthorne. And then I ran into some random girl at some random town, and she was like, yeah, my phone was pickpocketed. And like the same day that I got this text, like we got these like creepy texts from China being like, we have your phone and blah, blah, blah. That was only like a couple of weeks ago. Anyways, I know you've already have a plan for all this. You're already working on it, but I just wanted to say that I just wanted to say that, and that's all. Other than that, I really loved it. Thank you, everyone. Goodbye.
Thank you, Angela. Ms. Tiger, I see that you have your hand raised.
Hi, thank you. I just wanted to echo everything that Jackie Steele commented on. We have brought many of these statements and had some of these conversations in our LGBTQ plus advisory board meetings. So I think there is a need to not just assume, oh, we're going to work with JJLA or we're always going to work with a promoter, but how can we do this ourselves? Also, I think that there is a lot to be said when you are in conversation with community. And I appreciate everything that was discussed tonight, but I do want to go back to saying that we do need to have conversations such as Jackie Steele had mentioned. That's been very evident to me from community and by sitting on an advisory board. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Tiger. I do not see anyone else with their hand raised. If anyone would like to provide final public comment. Seeing none, thank you.
Great. Well, with that, we'll go next to the adjournment. The City Council West Hollywood Pride Subcommittee will adjourn at 6:56 p.m. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
everyone.
Thank you. Hi,
Hey, Robert.